Can we bring in our guest? Because I want to compliment you.
Me?
No, I'm done complimenting you. I'm through with you.
Okay.
Now back to what I was going to say. Our guest today is fresh off of a tour because she is one of the front women in the rock band Veruca Salt. It is Miss Louise Post. Now, I know you officially as a woman who randomly just walked up to me one day at school because of my PTA presidency and just said thank you. And I thought, well, that's a very nice.
Wow.
You remember that?
You're the only one who's ever thanked him, so yeah, he remembers
I'm not going to get into
Usually
it too
half
deeply,
the show is him complaining about being a PTA president, how he's underappreciated, how nobody likes him, how they called him the wrong name. Thanks, Mark. It's Brian. Okay, Chris.
Well, I'll tell you my response to Brian at one of the first, I don't know what it was, like, parent gatherings for the kinders, and Brian, ran the show and was basically doing a really good job of getting everyone to pull their checkbooks out right then and there. And I thought, thank God this guy's here. That's what I thought.
Wow. Look at that. So everyone who's mocked Brian's PTA presidency.
Well, that would include me.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so we're clear. I have also mocked my own PTA
anyone who's mocked his presidency or called for his impeachment.
And there are many.
Is it?
No.
Are there? You don't? Do you
No.
like? Are there meetings
Are
that
you
you
kidding?
spy on? You can attend these meetings, like oust Brian, like impeach.
First of all, no.
Go ahead.
I don't go.
First of all, no.
First of all, I don't go to meetings.
No, I don't go to meetings. Second of all, do you know how much the children love him for letting them throw dump spaghetti on his head and shaving cream pies in his face? He takes one for the team.
And this wasn't even at a function. This is just you walking down the street and kids.
Yeah, it happens every day.
Whipping shit at you,
just throwing stuff at me. Yeah, out of cars, and I'm walking down. I'm assuming they like me, right? When they're throwing stuff out of the cars.
That's all love. It's like when you're a kid and you push a person down on the playground. It means you like them.
Are you kidding?
There is some truth to that. Yeah. So it's funny you would bring that up. So one of the things is in school is I love watching the dynamics of children and how they deal with each other, because obviously they're still trying to figure out how to interact with other human beings, both male to male, female to female, male to female, all that stuff, right? And some of them never actually get past the early stages of how to deal with somebody. But
still haven't. I push my wife down the slide every day.
So exactly. So I'm watching these kids today, right? And there's two girls sitting on a bench. And I watch two boys go over and go, let's lift them up while they're on the bench. And the girl's like, oh, my God. And I'm going to myself, oh, they like you guys.
Yeah.
That's the only way they can show that they like you. They want to knock you off the bench. Which is so weird that, would you agree with me? That's probably what's going on there. Because it wasn't like, let's go be mean to you. That would be the perception if you didn't understand the dynamics of boys and girls. I looked at it like they didn't know how else to
get their attention.
Right. Well, and you have the perspective of a little boy. I have the perspective of a little girl. And in my case, like last week, there was an after-school arts collective. My daughter was making a Harry Potter newspaper on this friend's mom's computer laptop, and there were some boys who had come over, and Hugo had told these boys that my daughter and her friend were in first grade, and my daughter was furious because they're in second grade.
Oh,
and
you slime balls.
She was so mad, and she just said, Mom, boys are so annoying. I thought, here we go. Here it's on.
You have no idea.
Because there's a certain age where they just check out on each other. There's like nothing, you know what I mean? It's like it's just not there. But then all of a sudden, the switch, right? It's so, that whole dynamic is very, very interesting to me.
And at what age do girls, like most girls, start liking boys? Because I'm asking for my wife. She's in her 30s.
Oh, because you haven't really figured it out with her yet.
Got it. She's started to like me yet.
I was trying to think. I remember specifically, I think I was in fourth grade, I think, when I started having feelings. And I only know, feelings in general. I had no feelings before that. I was very psychotic.
Naturally.
Setting things on fire. And no, but I'll never forget. It was at Wind Point School, now closed, which is sad. I'm at an age now where actually the elementary school I went back to it, and they're tearing it down. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, really?
I've become that guy that always goes, over there used to be, and like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like,
now it's a mall.
Well, mine is like the top private elementary school in St. Louis.
Really?
Wow,
Yes.
So
and
it's still alive.
It's alive and well, and it was an experimental private progressive school in the 70s when I went. My parents were some of the founders, and now it's like this sort of elite progressive school that, you know, I'm dying to go to. No offense. You know, it's like I would like to bring my daughter there and plop her back into my elementary school. So it's far from gone. I'm sorry that yours is.
Yeah, just crushed my spirit when I came and it was all weeds, and I'm like, where's the guy that takes care of this place?
They've really let this place go.
They're like, it's been closed for 5 years.
Kids are losing their bikes in the grass.
That's sort of sad.
It is sad. You're seeing a part of your. The only thing I will say that was cool about it was that all the playground equipment that now would be deemed as stuff that could kill you was still there until it closed.
Rusty as ever.
What was you remember the shoot thing where you could put the ball and it was like a big bucket and then there was little holes that came out little.
Yeah.
Like that kind of crazy stuff, like the metal merry-go-rounds, like all that stuff was still there. Like literally all the stuff that now they'd be like, not a chance in hell.
Right. That stuff that now there are laws against and they can't.
Now everything is like soft rubber. Yeah, like. Yes, when we were kids.
You had a diving board at your school?
I'm just saying, like, that's also something that's outlawed that's fun now. Yeah, people can't put them in their pools
When we
anymore.
were kids, everybody had a diving board. Their diving boards were public pools. Now it's all high dives were everywhere. Now there's nothing. There's like maybe a small.
Just the other day, this adorable girl in my daughter's class broke her arm on our fine school's playground, falling off the monkey bars. Like, arms just, poking right out. And she's screaming bloody murder. And my daughter was saying that it was somewhere, what did she say? It was somewhere between the loudest scream an animal could ever make and the saddest cry. Anyway, so I was thinking
great description, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. Or for you, Lila's description.
Yes.
But the first thing I thought after, of course, feeling bad for this little girl was, there go the monkey bars.
Yeah,
it's
all
going.
It takes is one person to get injured. Take it away.
But that's a case in point where it's all spongy ground around there, and when you start learning that, like, no matter how many helmets, no matter how many like knee pads and elbow pads that you put on our children, like, people are still going to get hurt. Like, barring them literally rolling around in like big inflatable balls that they don't touch anything, someone's getting hurt at some point. Like, you know what I mean?
Even that, you can roll an ankle in one of those.
Well, exactly. Even in the but the point is, 9 times out of 10, no matter what you do, those types of things are probably freak accidents. You just fall the right way, snap, done.
I'm with you.
Over.
I'm with you.
Yeah, she's not like protesting the monkey bars. Like she's
no.
That's what we're talking. But I'm saying it's like even that school, which doesn't. She didn't fall on probably didn't fall on hard ground. Who knows how she did it? But I'm just saying it's like it is all spongy around those things, and people are still getting hurt. There's.
Yep. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And real quick, your parents funded the grade school you went to, or founded?
Probably funded too.
But
they kind of go hand in hand. Right?
I got the word wrong. That was not the word I meant, but I meant founded. That's interesting. Like it's like, hey, all these schools suck. We're going to make a school, and
I don't know actually the origin. I think that they wanted to. There wasn't a school in the neighborhood proper that this group of parents, my parents and their friends, felt was, it wasn't in the neighborhood, the one that they would have sent their kids to. I don't even know what schools are around there now. I don't think there was a school nearby. So I think they really wanted to create a neighborhood school, is my guess.
Gotcha. So it wasn't like you were homeschooled at a different building.
No.
Okay.
God, no.
You know how you feel about that. All right, so St. Louis proper or a suburb? Whereabouts did you grow up?
This school in question was in St. Louis proper, in the central west end of St. Louis.
Okay. So would you classify yourself as a early St. Louis city girl? Or do you see yourself more as a Midwestern suburb?
Child? Interesting. Yeah. I grew up in the city or close to the city. Not in downtown, but downtown was sort of a ghost town at that time.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Even
it's
back
changed.
Then.
Yeah. It's not so much anymore. It's changed a lot.
Is Busch Stadium downtown? Is like where the Cardinals play downtown?
Yeah.
And okay, so they've built that up to make it kind of like Cleveland did with their downtown.
All of downtown is just more active, more thriving now.
Yeah.
My brother is a photographer and did a book called Ghost Town St. Louis at Night of all these old buildings right before they knocked some of them down, these old historical buildings. I mean, the architecture in St. Louis is stunning. I don't know if you guys have been.
I haven't been, except for driving through. So That was a good story, huh?
Well, that's like it's like Vacation. It's like Chevy Chase and
Yes.
Beverly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how most people know St. Louis, but it's this incredibly beautiful, rich city with a rich history, and incredible like a racial diversity. And I know that it gets a lot of press for all of the racial tension. There's also a lot of racial harmony there, and it was a really great place to grow up.
So back then you saw both. You saw both sides of that as well back then.
I did very much.
From what years? How old were you till leaving? Your whole school life, or were you young and moved away?
No, I went to school. I was there all the way through high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
graduated I graduated from Clayton High School, and then I moved to New York and went to college in New York.
Okay. What was in New York for you that chose that path?
My
Music?
big sister had gone. No, I wasn't playing music. My big sister had gone to Barnard, and I went and visited New York. My mom took me on a college trip, and we went to. I was in a band at the time in St. Louis. I was in an R&B band, and it was a very popular R&B band that played all of these, played like all these proms, dances, bars, clubs. We did a little touring, and they were super hip and popular, and they played all covers. And it was like at the time, it was all Prince for me, all Prince
Really?
all day. That's all I really cared about. I did like bands like the Police. I went to see the Police. I grew up loving classic rock, so I did know. I loved Led Zeppelin and David Bowie, and it's funny the group Led Zeppelin and David Bowie being British. Well, they were as classic rock as anything.
Yeah.
And the Beatles, and
did you play guitar
and so
in this
and
band?
so on and so on. I did not play guitar. I was a singer.
Okay.
And I sang like Apollonia 6 and Sheena Easton Sugar Walls and Tina Marie. I Just Want to Be Your Lover Girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were all in.
I was all in. And I didn't want to leave the band. And my mom made me go on a college trip to see other colleges. She was insistent I go to college right away. And it's funny what hindsight, can do, because I can't even imagine having stayed in St. Louis and staying in that band that eventually did get signed and made a record under a different name and had somewhat of a future. But
Interesting. I wouldn't have expected that part of the story because you're basically talking about a band that's doing covers at the time.
yeah,
Right?
and then they
So-
started writing originals, and but they didn't really want me to be in the band full time anyway, because I was a white girl, and some of their audiences didn't want white girls to be singing in the band. They didn't want to be sung to by white girls. So back to race again.
Interesting.
I was in an all black band as the only white person, and I wasn't welcome certain places.
Did you take offense to it, or did you kind of understand it? Like, what was your perspective of it?
I did. I understood it. I really did. But I took offense to the band not telling me about certain gigs because they didn't want me to be at them. And there was another woman who sang named 𝘓𝘰𝘓𝘓, and so they would tell her about those shows. So I eventually quit the band when I saw the schedule and realized they hadn't been telling me about certain shows.
And in hindsight, you're like, dudes, if you'd have just told me, I probably would have understood. Or
Yeah, I probably, yeah. It insulted me. I didn't like it.
Oh, that's weird. You didn't like being lied to?
Yeah, funny, huh?
I didn't know that was a thing people didn't enjoy.
So they called me one night to do a show. I knew that it was on the schedule, but they hadn't told me about it. I don't remember what the nature of the show was, but this guy Edgar in the band called me, and I had known about the show, but because he forgot to tell me or wasn't going to tell me or whatever it was, I had made plans to go to the Peppers prom at my school with Peter Pfeiffer. And so he called.
Peter Pfeiffer at the Peppers prom?
Exactly. And so we were on
I
our
was
way.
wondering if you were going to pick up on that. Were you waiting for that?
Peter Pfeiffer picked her peck. Okay. So I was on my way out, and I got the call, and I said, I'm so sorry, Edgar. I won't be able to attend that show. I have a Peppers prom to attend.
With Peter Pfeiffer.
With Peter Pfeiffer. And so that was that. And I
So
went.
were you out of the band at that point? He was like, well, you're fired.
No, I quit.
Oh.
Yeah. Please.
Because he's our next guest, and he might tell a different story.
So that
Bring
was
him
that.
in.
But
Bring him in now. Let's just bring him in early.
Interestingly, when I was growing up, my family had been a part of the St. Louis Country Club, the sort of elite racist institution, old school, old money. And my grandfather had been, I don't know, on the board. My grandfather was like, I don't know if you guys know about the Veil Prophet Parade. Veil Prophet. Oh, well, he was the Veil Prophet. And it was the Veil Prophet King or whatever. And there's a Veil Prophet Queen. And It was really icky. My mom and her sister, I think my aunt was the veiled prophet queen. And I think it had involved like white men in like hats or masks or something like, I don't know. It sounds so
creepy.
awful.
Oh, yeah. It already sounds like something that if you stumbled upon, you'd be like, oh, okay, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, eyes wide
They're
shut.
Gonna
I'm
kill
totally
me.
thinking eyes wide shut right now.
Yeah.
Maybe not that sinister.
But like everybody wearing like fun straw hats. Like, I don't know. Like, it's like eyes wide shut for like people who dress up to go on picnics.
straw hats. No, this was elegant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, nice
straw hats.
Nice straw hats. Not the kind like the kind of barbershop quartet would wear. Not like Hayseed Johnny would wear like out in the field.
I was thinking more like the beanies that the tall beanies with the little tassels hanging off them.
Oh, the like the Shriners wear.
Shriners stuff. Yeah.
What do you call it? A fez.
A fez, yeah.
Yeah.
Not even that. Both of us are way off. I'm going to stick with eyes wide shut. A little bit more sterile, creepy, high end.
Yeah, and these people fancy themselves European, so there's a lot of mishmash fashion, European fashion, and so what happened was they all were involved. They were all like a part of the St. Louis Country Club, and my aunt, who always was politically driven and canvassed for low income housing. Much of her life was doing virtuous and noble and forward moving acts in St. Louis. She brought one of her son had a black friend, and they brought him with them to the country club, and they wouldn't let them in. He wouldn't let them in. This was like she was 10 years older than my mom, so this was maybe in the 60s, and so. My parents, they withdrew their membership. My parents withdrew. We all pulled out. Years later, they had like, they called it fleur-de-lis, like high society grooming for children. I know that it still exists and there's various names for it, at this St. Louis Country Club. And we were invited, my band, my predominantly black band, was invited to perform, because they were the most popular band in St. Louis. So I returned to the St. Louis Country Club with my band and played to these kids who were just like freaking out. So it was just an interesting turn of events and full circle moment.
Right.
And it gave me great satisfaction. I mean, the whole evening was pretty profound.
Nice. And those kids were freaking out because they hadn't heard good music for a long time or ever? Or?
It was just, these guys were so good.
Yeah.
They were so good. They were on fire. I didn't belong with them. But I mean, I guess I added something to the mix. But then I went to college in New York and I discovered the Pixies and Brian Eno, and my life changed.
Yeah.
When did you pick up an actual instrument, or had you been dabbling with it anyway, or were singing your first thing? Like, how did music flow through you? Like, how did you even end up going music? Yes, because I tried it and I was like, music, gotta go, because it wasn't in me.
No, music was like, music said, thanks, we'll call you, buddy.
It's so interesting how people who are artistically inclined tend to feel like everyone else should be able to do it, that it's so easy, that it comes so naturally, that it's just, that what they have to contribute isn't that unique or special. I think that is the case with musicians. It's certainly the case with me, and I have to be reminded by people like you that no, it isn't. It isn't in everyone's DNA.
It's not.
Yeah. So,
it's rare.
But I grew up singing with my mom. She played acoustic guitar, and we'd sing at family parties. She taught me harmony. Some of the songs she taught me, I teach the first graders now and the kids now at our school, and second graders. And so, and then I sang with my dad a lot. My dad was a sailor, and he was in the Navy. And he had his own sailboat, and we would sail in Lake Michigan in the summers, and we would go out there and sing. And that was really, those are my fondest memories of my father and me singing. And they met in a choir, so there's no mistake there. And then I went on to sing any chance I got. I mean, there was singing in my grade school. There was always singing, and it was always my favorite part of the day. And then I was in, choruses as soon as they were available. Many of my favorite memories are singing in choruses, choirs. I began being in musicals as soon as possible. in grade school and so on and through high school. And then I was in a couple of bands in high school, one with my brother called The Prodigy. Now, which is our band? Was it Prodigy? Which one came out in the 90s? Was it Prodigy?
Yeah, there was a band called Prodigy.
That was more electronic.
They had a song called Smack My Bitch Up.
Yes.
I know. Do you think that would fly today?
No, I do not.
No, it would not.
But they loved it in Europe. I was over there for just vacationing, and this guy was like, "Yeah, smack my bitch up," and I'm like, "Dude, what are you?" Like, I'm like, "Okay."
I have to say, I think it's a good song.
It's a great song, and again, not all songs are what they are on face value. You know, as a songwriter, some things are interpretive.
There's a lot of great hip hop songs that talk about really disgusting things.
I said not all songs are on point or on the nose. You know, you shouldn't. You got to give. You know, it's. I could see though that's still just on face value. That if you're walking past a poster that says that, you're like, I'm sorry, what are we doing here? I get that.
I don't know what kind of album
if
this
you don't
is.
know the context, and it may be on point. I'm just saying that, you know.
And also, I think you could get, Eminem kind of showed you can get away with a lot of stuff depending on how you do it. Does that make sense?
No, because I don't know what you're talking about. In what respect? How do you?
In the way, in like would Smack My Bitch Up fly today? No, we kind of live in a more. Like we've kind of come back to the PC. It's all a loop. It's all a circle. Like we were when I was in high school. There was like, it's politically correct. You have to be political. By the time I got to college, it was like, politically incorrect. Fuck everybody. We can make fun of everything. And then we're back to like, don't make fun of anybody. We've all got no senses of humor, and that's kind of where we're at right now. But I think with some people, like, this music, you can't have the word bitch in a song, and now people still do it, and there's ways to. I don't know. I don't want to say make it okay. I just mean make it so that people will listen to it and not protest it every second.
They might have been. They obviously might have been saying it in an ironic way.
Maybe, we don't
know. Maybe perhaps the video shed light onto that. I don't know.
It didn't.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much shed light. See more shed light on a guy that was completely out of control on drugs, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I think he was confused about what hairstyle he wanted. That's what I remember about that guy. It was like there was somehow like hair around the edges, but then also a mohawk. I'm not.
So what you're saying, Louise, is that you actually wrote the song. They stole it, the name and the song, and now you're actually going to tell us what the song was all about. Is that we just
got off on a weird. Sorry about that.
Tangent.
Go ahead.
I stole the name. Exactly.
No, they took everything from you.
No, I was just thinking about having met that guy at V97.
Oh, you actually met?
Yeah, I met him.
Okay.
I've forgotten his name now.
Probably Victor or something.
I thought they were really good. I really liked that band.
They did they played stadiums.
Yeah, they were great. They were fantastic.
I have the album. I used to work out to it when I used to work out. Now I just put on workout clothes and listen to it.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
It's overrated. Working out is overrated.
Currently for me, apparently, yes.
If you can't get into it, then yes, it's overrated. Like everything.
So anyway,
sorry.
But when you were in those bands in high school, though, were you playing instruments at that point, or still no? You were just singing.
I played keyboards.
You did?
Yeah, I did some, not much. There were like 3 keyboardists in the band.
Did you?
3 keyboardists in the band?
Yeah.
Oh, you? Okay.
They didn't need me.
Right.
They just heard me play some classical music and they were blown away. So because I played classical piano.
Oh, okay. Now, was that something can I ask you a question? Because we didn't do this in my household. Maybe it's just because I lacked the musical inclination. But did your parents be like, all right, you're going to play piano, and like and so they got you the piano teacher, and you got the little Beethoven heads when you succeeded?
No Beethoven heads.
No Beethoven heads?
No. But
so
I did.
they did do that. So
yes.
And can I ask you a question? Because this goes back to what I was saying. When you started being taught something, did it come easy to you? Even piano, did it make sense when someone says sit down and they go, there's 2 hands and this is what it's going to sound like, and there's basically having the music flow through you, and then also having that memory muscle of like going back to those things very easily. All those things, which is why I struggle with it. Like, it never felt like anything was going through me, and I was able to bring it back out. It always looked so foreign to me, and I couldn't get past that. Did you realize early on that it wasn't foreign to you? Like
yeah. It
made sense.
Yes, it all made sense, and it was fun. It made sense. It was fun. I loved doing it. I got satisfaction out of it. I really liked it. I remember having a quasi-strict teacher, but nice, nice enough.
They come to the house?
I went to hers.
Okay.
Yeah, I had one later who came to the house. He was very sweet and kind, and I was always forgetting I had piano. And I would be down the street, like sitting on the curb with my friend, and Mr. Robinson would be waiting for me. I'd had dinner with my parents. Like, Mr. Rob, I'd come in, I'd roll in, after dark, like, oh, Mr. Rob, you're here.
And he would just
He'd be like, yeah,
away.
it's Wednesday. It's time for your
I
lesson.
think he must have put aside like 3 hours for me. He was so nice. But he taught my brother rock songs, so he
On
I
piano?
I was kind of, I didn't want to learn classical at that point. I wanted to play layla and I don't remember else.
Which is still like the Layla part, the piano part of Layla is still very classical sounding.
Well, it is, yeah. It's so beautiful. I still play it. Yeah.
I can't. I always get Goodfellas
Oh yeah.
stuck in my head.
That was a perfect placement for that song,
God, it was
wasn't
great.
it?
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And that part of the song too. It's like that kind of build. It was an intense
Here's what
scene.
I got out of that story. There was no cell phones, and unless somebody yelled out the front door to try to see if you were within earshot, no one knew where you were and had no idea when you were coming back. That's what I got out of that, because there was no way to track you.
Absolutely. No
You were
tracking
feral
devices.
at that moment.
I was, and I loved it. And that's we could spend an hour talking about how wrong it is that everyone is trackable at this state.
It's crazy.
At this stage. And
I think being feral helps with survival. I think removing every feral instinct from our children is not a good thing.
Agreed. And it also creates the frenzy for screens that furthers their, well, in my opinion, is is problematic. The data is still coming in, but it's of great concern to me that there's so many screens in the hands of our children and not just mine.
Yeah.
And so,
Get off and get outside. That's our theory in our household.
yeah, that's good.
You will stare at the sun. Well, not stare at it. That's
You
bad.
will
Yeah,
stare at the sun. I
Go
think
out
it's
and
better if
destroy
I
your
look at a
eyes.
screen maybe than staring at the sun.
Right.
Well, there's a book written recently that, and apparently the author, and I don't know the name offhand, the author is doing school tours about the things that happen biologically to children, physiologically, especially from the ages 9 to 12, who are intensely on screens. There are things that can't be
Reversed.
Yeah, things that can't be reversed.
Well, they find that not to get off on the tangent like you talked about, but the fact of the matter is, and I don't need to see any more statistics because I think I'm part of the problem as well. Is programmers have openly admitted they've figured out a way to program things that create dopamine.
Yeah. Yes.
So once they figure that out, that's why we're grabbing our screens. That's why we're going down rabbit holes. That's why we find ourselves kind of like in this fog and we're still online accomplishing absolutely nothing because they've found what triggers those dopamine things in us, and that's what gets us addicted to them. And so, again, I'm not putting on the tinfoil hat, Art Bell, rest in peace. I'm just saying it's like,
He keeps the tinfoil on the inside of his baseball hat. So
yeah, that's
no
right.
one
Yes, you
can
can't
see
actually see it.
Just keep it on the
There it
inside.
is. But you know what I mean? It's like I just some things are just they're right there in front of your face. We obviously know there's something going on there because we're all kind of like we're hooked a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah.
As people that are listening to this right now on their phones are thinking to themselves, so what are we supposed to do right now? I mean, we're actually
Don't worry,
on
this is the only thing my mom will listen to on her phone, and then she'll go back to her
in high speed.
her busy day of traveling and dancing and whatever else she does.
So I have a friend who is not hopeless because I still reserve hope for her, even though she just can't come back. She is a very serious addict. And I've seen her in the throes of her disease. I've seen her in very dark places. I've helped to get her to rehab. I've helped to facilitate her recovery many times. And it's a really frightening thing to witness and to not be able to solve and cure and make better. And to see, wash and repeat. I have another friend who has a 10-year-old daughter, and my daughter was with her when my daughter was 6. I think maybe 6 or 7. And my friend and I really wanted to talk because we hadn't seen each other in so long. We were in St. Louis. And this other older daughter had a phone, and I got a little lazy and stopped watching what was going on. And she had taught my daughter how to play a game called Pack-a-Pets. And my daughter begged me to download this game for her. And I am loath to download games for her and to give her any screen time. And this one time I thought, okay, and I'll do this. And the next morning I woke up, we were sharing a bed at my mom's house. I woke up at 6:30 and she was nowhere to be found. And I'm like, that's weird. She's not in the bathroom. She's not in bed. I wonder where she could be. And then I found her like in a corner. And she said, Mom. I said, Lena, what are you doing? She goes, Mom. And she looked up at me like she had been up all night on drugs or something. She looked up at me like, Mom, it evolved. It's this little animal that you feed and, this little creature you take care of, this virtual creature. It evolved, Mom. And her eyes were like saucers. And I thought, this isn't good. And, that was iPad, and I almost threw it out that day, and I didn't throw it out.
There's a way to control anything, right? And it goes back to what you kind of said. Like, if you cut too much slack, you're also part of the problem, right? Like, that's how I kind of look at it. It's like this because I'll be honest with you, if you were to start digging through our cabinets over here, you'd see a lot of video game systems. Like, look, it's like a museum of like video games. I'm not a video game player. I never really was. Because I think I've joked about this with John before. Like, I'm old enough that I remember when Pong came out. But more importantly, the real shift between outside kids and inside kids happened with Space Invaders. I saw so many neighborhood kids disappear the day that Space Invaders came in their house. They never came out again. They stopped playing outside. They just sat there all day long blowing that stuff up, man. And I remember walking in going, you want to go outside? You want to do it? They're like, no, look. And I tried. I like sat there and I watched and I stared and I was like, yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm going back outside. Like, it just never really connected with me.
You couldn't follow the plot of Space Invaders?
Yeah, the plot. Yeah, it was a very tricky plot, this up and down thing, back and forth. But no, so it's like I never really got that tied to it. But over the decades, I'm seeing more and more people that, they quickly are like, they go down that rabbit hole, man. They're gone. They're just gone. And I know that everyone now is like, it's just part of society. You're going to have to accept that. The touchy-feely. Toys R Us is closing. Nobody wants dolls anymore. They only want iPads. They only want,
right.
You know what I mean? They only want iPhones. So be it, whatever. But in my house, even if I've got all this crap, got to control it.
Right,
Got to get outside. Just don't stare at the sun is what we're talking about. Unless you get those glasses from school, the dark ones.
I'm with you.
Glasses.
I'm with you. You got to go outside.
So I let them play on the iPads, but I make them wear the Eclipse glasses so they actually can't see anything that's in front of them.
There you
in the
go.
dark. So I combine everything. Right?
Very nice, Brian.
Thank you. I just wanted to tie it all together.
Beautiful.
When did guitar come into play?
When I was 20 and I was in New York and I was living in this off-campus housing at 79th and Amsterdam. There was a mixture of young women going to Barnard College up on the Upper West Side, and we would literally take a school bus to school, and elderly people with fixed housing, with fixed rents, and they couldn't eject them from the building, so they were they were able to stay, but it was quite a contrast. And there was an old man living next to us who would moan a lot and was very surly and hated us. So it was hard to really have a lot of compassion or know what to do to try to help him because he never would even look us in the eye,
You were just a bunch of damn rascals wrecking the place.
Yes. And there were two women living down the hall. One woman I met in the elevator the first day. She seemed like this really conservative sort of preppy girl. She was from Georgia. And later on, I met her roommate who was kind of tomboyish and super cool and sweet and Puerto Rican. And I connected with her right away. And we became good friends. And much later, I realized, they're together.
It's like Liberace, the Discovery. Wait a minute, you're what?
I had heard that at women's colleges, women got together.
This was proof.
So this woman, Maria, she is to date one of the coolest people I've ever met. And she taught me how to play Chinese Rock, the Ramones song, on guitar.
Okay.
And
that was your first guitar.
Yeah.
That's how you learned.
That was it.
You didn't traditionally go Stairway to Heaven. You went.
I was gonna say of everyone I know that's ever played the guitar and heard the first song they ever learned, Chinese Rock by the Ramones. That's never been a thing where I was like, yeah, no, of course you learned that song. Of course you didn't go smoke on the water. Of course you learned,
Well, and with that, she gave me the sheet music for the theme song from The Love Boat for some reason.
And did you learn that?
No, I never managed to learn.
God, I loved that show. That would have been a great reason to have the guitar.
I could just see you going to an open mic in New York. All right, so I'm going to play.
This is the theme from Love Boat. Da, da, da.
Yeah, it was. I never learned it. I don't think I had much interest in learning it. But what was interesting?
Weird. Not a call for that in any of the bands you thought you might join.
I actually never learned covers. I was never inclined to learn covers. I was inclined to start writing songs from the moment I learned a chord.
Okay,
Really?
So that's why I believe that it's in you.
Yes,
That desire to create.
It wasn't desire as much as desperation. It came out so fast. It was like it was waiting for me to
backed up.
Well, I never did it on piano, interestingly. I never felt like piano, although I have since. I've never felt like, at the time, I didn't feel piano was a conduit for my sentiments or, emotions. It never felt like an outlet. It always felt, because I learned, I think because I began reading music so young, I wasn't ready to write. Although my daughter just the other day wrote a song on piano, wrote a piece. She wrote the most beautiful melody line. And I thought it was some kind of classic song she was playing. And she said, no, that's mine. I wrote that. She's 7. So so what do I know?
Wow.
But for me, it was guitar. And it wasn't until I was 20. And I immediately started writing songs.
So there wasn't even a time when you, like, because what I feel like, if you start to play an instrument and you emulate the bands and musicians you like, in an attempt to find your own voice, where then you start writing your own music and you kind of go forth and you've been influenced by all this stuff. And now, I'm not saying you weren't heavily influenced by other musicians, but to pick up a guitar and right away be like, I'm going to just start, these are my, like, you knew enough, like, within you that you started doing original songs right away. You didn't need to find a voice. You kind of, if you're going to find your voice, it was going to be through your own original material.
Right. I had to find my voice, and I didn't do it through others.
Yeah.
They may have been the filter already embedded in me, but I didn't need to learn other people's songs in order to play my own. I wasn't inclined to do that.
Yeah.
It just came most naturally to me to start singing along with chords I was playing and singing melodies. I didn't even set out to write a song. It just started happening. So, and that was, and I was too eager. I barely knew any chords. So I wrote a song called The Younger Child about my brother when I knew 2 chords. And I wrote a song for my dad for Father's Day when I knew 2 chords. And
whole bands have existed on just 2 chords.
Yeah, well, usually it's 3, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
I was just sticking with 2 for a while. And
well, they were tribute songs, so 2 chords is fine. I mean, there's you can cut some slack because it's like, this one's for you, Dad. I don't think he's gonna be like, that's it. Where's that's usually
no
3
third
chords.
chord? No, I guess you can
that's
call
fine.
that a
You
song.
can go with the 2. That's fine.
he was very appreciative and very, very sweet about it. And my dad was actually a closet composer. In fact, he composed in his head, which is something I've come to do, not composing symphonies as my dad did, but I compose songs in my head when I'm too busy to get to guitar or piano, which is often the case in parenthood. I write in my head. And when there was a period of time when I had a new baby and pregnant, when I didn't want to be writing, I always thought I would write an acoustic album when I was pregnant called So I Got Pregnant and Wrote an Acoustic Album. But that album didn't naturally make itself known when I was pregnant. In fact, I didn't want anything to do with music. I just wanted to watch 8 bad 80s movies on Encore.
Wow. Some people like pickles and ice cream. You're like, bad 80s movies.
And donuts.
Donuts.
Glazed donuts.
Well, okay. This
Krispy
is
Kreme.
What I like to call a Wednesday.
Any glazed.
Now is not the time to be picky.
Well, I never noticed how many donut shops there are in LA until I was pregnant. They're on every corner.
They're everywhere.
crazy.
And then
That doesn't mean that they're good, by
except
the way.
when you except when
Are
you
you
really
sure?
want a donut. I feel like wherever I am when I'm like, ooh, a donut sounds good. I'm not around a donut shop, but I probably drove by 35 donut shops on my way here.
You just have to drive another block and you'll find it.
Probably, yeah, like 7 on each corner.
I would be like, honey, pull over. It's like, what? No. But donuts aside, I didn't want to. I thought I'd make a record. I didn't have any interest in writing music at that time, none at all. And after she was born, I thought, oh, I definitely don't want to make music anymore. But the songs kept writing themselves. And I learned from my dad in his later years that I came by that honestly, and that he had been composing symphonies in his head for forever. And he would sing parts to me. He would sing the different parts, the orchestral parts, the horns, and it was incredible. My dad's dad had told his 3 sons they would all be doctors and they get to choose which kind. So my dad chose psychiatry because it was the most interesting or the most artistic to him. His brothers were ophthalmologists and an orthopedic surgeon, so they chose more technical sciences, and my dad chose one that was, I guess he thought the most artistic of the 3. Although I guess an argument could be made that they're all artistic in their own right.
In their own right. I mean, if you're a doctor of any kind, there's a little bit of an art form to it, I think.
Right, absolutely. But then so where was I? Oh yeah, so
you did exactly what we were hoping we were going to do in this conversation. You went from like the first time you learned a song, you talked about childbirth.
Oh yeah, but not wanting anything to do with music while you were pregnant.
Not wanting anything to do with music.
And the songs write themselves anyway.
Yeah. But so I guess the question is though, all right, so you're starting to mess around with this. You're in New York, which is a great place, whether New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, any big city. At what point did you be like, all right, I either got to find... Did you start performing by yourself at clubs? Did you immediately find other people and start a band? Like what... Where did it turn... Where did it start turning into something more than just fiddling around? Because you went out there to be in college for what we didn't really discuss, but like I don't know what you're...
Yeah, what were you majoring in when you were out there?
I was an English major.
Okay.
I wanted to double major in art history, but I realized that a little too late. I took a survey art history course and then an Arts of China course that was incredible, and I really wanted to incorporate that into my major, but it was just too late. So yeah, I was an English major, and I didn't know what I wanted to do after college at all, and I had been writing songs, and I was interested in being in a band, but I really hadn't sorted out what kind or what I wanted to do, if I wanted to play. And I remember there was one ad I answered in college for this awful, awful band. And I went to this horrible practice space, this shitty, like, nasty practice space, and like met this crazy mishmash of people who were starting a band together. And there was like this... I mean, they all races are represented. Let's just say that. And then there was the one white guy was kind of a city/surfer dude who was playing his guitar, left-handed guitar, like the B-52's guitar player without 2 strings in the middle.
Because the B-52s did that, or because he... Okay.
No, but yes, because of the B-52s. It was
without
so
the what like
weird.
the D and the what strings you take off?
So I guess he took out the D and the G string.
Why? What?
I don't. He thought it was a good way to play guitar.
He didn't have his own identity. I'll answer that question.
Nobody there did. So anyway, that's
the
versions of.
Yeah, so that didn't happen.
I'm assuming you went to that thing going, one of 2 things is going to happen today. I'm either going to be in a new band or I'm going to die. So
right.
Let's.
Did they ever do anything? Did you ever know that these people went off and like? I mean, is this like?
Or was that
did you ever hear
one and only time you ever
I have no idea. That was that. But I took a poetry class my senior year, and I really didn't know much about contemporary poetry. And the professor was a visiting professor named Elizabeth Sokolow, and she had me come to her office after I submitted my samples, and along with a number of other people. And she said, "You're essentially writing light verse right now. I've been studying Victorian poetry and Ben Jonson and John Donne." She said, if you're not going to get, I want you to know before taking this course that you're not going to get anything above a C. And if you'd like to take it, you're welcome. But I don't want you to expect anything higher than that. And I thought, bitch, let's see, we'll see about that. And I went ahead and aced it and learned. It was like a sponge. I just soaked up all of the contemporary poets and poetry I could, and all of the poetry in my class. It was in a conference room, and it was what do you call those classes? I can't remember. As not a lecture, but a
Assembly hall? No.
What?
No, it was just in a tiny little room.
I just call those classes. I went to a very small college.
Okay, so it was a
just-
class.
And I skipped most of them, so I can't remember what the name of they are.
Well, I skipped.
ours. They
I
clearly
actually
skipped it.
I skipped ballet and music theory. I either got a D or an F in music theory. It brought my
Really?
GPA way down.
Dude, you know what, though? It
That's
sounds like you went to
interesting.
college because one of the things you learn in college is how to not go to class.
Yes, exactly.
It's a
Yeah,
that's part
strategy
of
that
it.
you basically lay out your calendar, you lay out your desires in life, and then you go, let me see here.
How can I get away with doing the bare
Can I
minimum?
manipulate this and still get those points at the end of the year in those grades?
Well, it's true. And I had a boyfriend in St. Louis, so my heart was there, sort of, and then I was always, but my favorite class was poetry, and I would sit wistfully on these, these outdoor, in New York, there are those, what do you call them? The stairs going out, the escapes,
Oh, fire escapes.
fire escapes. Thank
Yeah.
you. And look at the water
Got John's
towers, those beautiful black water towers against the sky, the silhouettes of the water towers that I thought were so poetic and ghostly. And I would sit out there and write poetry. And I ended up getting a prize for the most original poem by a Barnard undergrad. It was my biggest
Jesus.
honor
wow.
in college. So
Did you ever walk up to that professor again and be like, "Hey, in your face"?
no, I don't think I needed to.
but the way she laughed, she wanted to.
I know. I
That's
don't
right.
think I needed to. I think by the end we both knew what had happened and
Yeah.
what had
Okay.
transpired over the course of the semester. But so I was really into poetry and into writing songs. And from there, I went to that dude from home. Sort of broke my heart, and he was in a band, of course. And I ended up going to Israel for the summer. And right before going to Israel, I went to visit Chicago. With said guy and some friends.
Just to hang out, hear
Just
music,
to hang out,
see
yeah,
bands?
yeah, exactly. Here's some blues. We went to,
Fuck
it was,
yeah.
it was incredible. And I also had a childhood friend named 𝘓𝘰𝘶𝘪𝘴𝘦, and we went to see his theater company. They were called the New Criminals, and they were working out. They did this form of theater called 𝘊𝘠𝑒médie dell'arte with white face makeup. It was sort of a bastardization of that. This style that came from Italy in the 17th century or 1700s, and that the Théâtre du Soleil had taught two famous actors, Tim Robbins and John Cusack, and they had taken this style back to their respective hometowns, LA and Chicago. And John had taught it to his friends in Chicago, his acting friends, and Tim Robbins taught it to his acting friends in LA, and they started the Actors Gang, and the guys in Chicago started the New Criminals or New Crime. And
Gotcha.
so I went and saw this company work out, do comedy improv, and it was so incredible. It was mind-blowing. It was like punk rock theater. Everything was in heightened states of emotions. It was all improvised. And I was just so freaked out afterwards. I thought, I want to do that. I want to do that. And then I went to Israel. I ended up going to Israel for 6 weeks. This guy ended up I don't know, he's cheating on me. And so I called a high school friend, and he was studying at a yeshiva in Israel. And he's like, come to Jerusalem. So I booked a flight
Which
that
we
day.
all do usually during a breakup.
Yeah.
Right, we
I'm
just
going
leave.
to Israel.
Yeah.
You sure you don't want to just go to the bar and nope?
Nope. I had to get as far away as possible.
I just sat in my room and cried usually during breakups. I didn't really go far.
Aw.
Life.
This,
It got me where I am today.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
You are okay.
Are
We all
you?
have our process, right? I've done a certain amount of crying, into my beer as well. So I think we've all been
done
there.
it. So you're in. You
Israel.
Sobbing to Stevie Nicks and yeah, so I went to Israel, and while I was there, there was a moment of truth in which I was invited to continue my stay. I could have stayed the whole year, and I was driven to do that, and yet I had this feeling like I needed to go back to St. Louis. Or to Chicago. I wanted to move to Chicago and either be in this theater company or start a band. And that won. I had a really incredibly spiritual moment in Israel when I was touching the Western Wall, and I felt like a friend of mine from college had said, "Whatever you do, go to the Western Wall, put your hand on it. Just don't ask questions, just do it." And I thought, oh boy, here we go, Margaret and her woo-woo stuff. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll do it. And this was towards the end of my stay, and I went down during the day, and I went to the Wailing Wall, and I leaned up against it. There was just a smattering of old women praying and men davicking, and I walked up to the wall, and this old woman said 𝘓𝘠𝘕 to me. And I leaned up against it, and I put my hand on it, and I felt instant tears. I was just feeling normal, and then I felt this rush of energy through my body and instantaneous tears. And it truly felt like the pain of the ages of all women was coming through me and coming through my eyes. And that's the best way I can explain it. And
Wow.
I
So
felt
you were caught completely off guard.
I was caught completely off guard. I thought, well, Margaret told me to do this, so I better go do this.
You're just following orders.
Yes,
basically,
I
at the
was
time.
following orders. I had no idea. And I stayed there as long as I could kind of take it, sobbing at the wall. And then I sort of pulled myself away and moved on. And there are all these, and for anyone who doesn't know, there are all these tiny little prayers, little scrolls tucked into the wall when you go down and you're close to it. These little tiny scrolls people have tucked into the wall, like thousands and thousands of them, little prayers. So I wanted to stay and deepen my understanding of God. I was going to a lot of, I was listening to a lot of, I wasn't raised religious, but I was listening to a lot of rabbis give talks and lectures, and I was living with one of my best childhood friends who was studying with rabbis at yeshiva in Jerusalem in the Old City. And I was learning so much about Judaism, and I was loving it, and I wanted to stay and learn more, but I also really wanted to go to Chicago. And I had this pull, and I felt like time was ticking, and I was in my 20s, and I had to go do this. So I went, and because I went, I started writing songs. I did get to this theater company. I was in 2 plays with them. I did all the workshops. It was incredible and life-changing. And when I eventually began a band and writing my own songs in a band and singing my songs in a band, and people would say, "Isn't that scary?" And I'd say, "Are you kidding? I was in New Crime. I did improvisation.
I did improv acting in front of audiences that wanted to be entertained now.
Right. So I'm singing my own lyrics that I had the luxury of sitting in my bedroom and writing. I even wrote them myself. No problem. But that was how I came around to, well, I didn't even, you didn't know about the theater part, but that's how I came around to music. And eventually the theater company was male driven. It was started by John and Jeremy Piven, and now a known actor, and his, Adele Robbins was Tim Robbins' sister, Paul Quinn, Aidan Quinn's brother,
Jesus,
and a lot of heavyweights, and a lot of very talented actresses. I think Lily Taylor was involved in the beginning of New Crime. She was a Chicago actor who grew up with those guys and studied with Jeremy's parents in Evanston and at the Piven Theater Workshop, as did I for some time. And after working out with this company for 1.5 to 2 years, the 2 plays I'd been in were they were chosen by the men who started the company. They were predominantly male characters. There would be like a token female, and there wasn't enough room for the talent that they had, the talent pool. So the women were getting sort of left out or put aside, and there was also a band that accompanied the shows that we put on, and I was asked to be an alternate, an understudy / alternate cast in this particular show we did, and to be in the band when I wasn't playing this character. And in the end, they decided to undouble cast the show and asked me to continue playing in the band. And then I was like, I'm actually an actor and I want to be in the show. And
we're always being mislabeled. yeah, that's great, guys. You do know that I came here to act, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right, so just go back over to the band.
Right.
Okay, just wanted to be heard, but I guess I'm not.
And so it was after that I was very good friends with Bill Cusack, and he and I went down to Lower Links, and we were having a pint. And that's something people do in Chicago. On like cold winter nights, you go to the Lower Links or.
John's getting very excited right now.
You know it?
As you can tell by his hat.
I
saw the hat.
I like Chicago. I'm from the burbs, but I like Chicago. And yes, I had people talking about getting a pint and that's very.
It's very close to Wrigley Field, this place, and so and I remember him saying, "Well, you're a good actor, Or he might have said great, but I seem to remember good.
Interesting that you would lie the other way then. Like, he might have said great, but I'm going to go with good.
Yeah,
Like,
normally over the years, we usually upgrade the stories. You
I know.
actually downgraded yourself.
he said he'd never seen anyone like me in all of his years looking at actors.
I'd like to think that he said great, but I'll have to ask him. What did you say that night? I'm sure he doesn't remember, but what he said was something I never forgotten, which is, but I see you mainly as a poet, singer, songwriter. I see you making records. And because Billy had come from a family, the Cusack family, his sister Joan, we lived in Chicago. And so I grew up thinking that actors and people in bands were from different planets. And the joke in my house was I would say, Mom, I'm going to Hollywood. I'm leaving. And she'd say, where are you going? And I'd say, Hollywood. And I had no idea where Hollywood was. I didn't.
Going into the television.
Right. And so that night changed my life. And there's something about Billy being closer to that dimension and my not understanding or even connecting to that or understanding like that this was possible. These things were possible. And so I was just coming to a place in my life where I realized, oh, that's possible. I can do something like that. And the idea of making records was intoxicating to me. And that did it. He said, record a song a day. He gave me an assignment. I was following orders again. Record a song a day on your 4-track. And I said, okay. So that's what I did. And then Billy I was living with Billy, and he had an ex-girlfriend named Lily Taylor. And I had recorded some songs. My brother was an engineer. My brother, also a musician, my little brother Eric, was an engineer at a studio in St. Louis. And he asked me to come down and record some songs, or he helped me record them. And I was playing.
You do it solo, just so we're clear, right?
This is just me
you.
by myself,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, continue, sorry.
No problem.
Acoustic guitar?
Acoustic.
Yeah.
And
So your brother said, come on down to St. Louis.
and so I didn't. And then I was playing these demos I had just recorded at this New Year's Eve party that I had with Billy. And Billy had asked me to ask if it would be okay with me if Lily came to the party, because Billy and I were dating, well, living together, technically dating and living together.
Which one came first? Which one was the
Really?
discovery? Which one was the discovery? Hey, wait a minute, we're living together?
We were in a theater company. We started dating, and then we moved in. And he's the only other man I ever lived with besides my husband.
Oh.
Yeah. After we broke up, I thought, that's it. Not until I meet the one. So, and Billy said, do you mind if Lily comes? And I said, I don't know about that. And he said, no, you're going to love her. You have to meet her. It was almost as if he was directing my life. He was the divine force in my life, guiding me to my next phase and, venture or whatever. Because Lily then heard my music and came up to me, and not only did I love her instantly, but she came up to me and said, is this you? And I said, yes. And she said, you have to meet my friend Nina. She's been trying to find someone to play music with, and she just graduated from Tufts, which for me was interesting because we were both back from the East Coast, and she's trying to find someone, and you are the one. You have to meet Nina. She said it with such urgency and such conviction that I wasn't going to cross Lily in the first place.
Right.
But after that, I was like, okay, just say when. And then she went back to New York. She later went to a party that night and saw Nina and said, you have to meet this woman, Louise. And then she went back to New York. She sprinkled her fairy dust and left. And when she came back, or when she went back to New York, she, I guess, gave us each other's numbers. And
Landlines.
we got together on a blind date.
Were they landlines? Did you guys get each other's
Of course they were landlines.
Yeah. What are they not going to be walkie-talkies, dude?
Give each other.
What
Here's
frequency
one
is she on?
walkie-talkie for you.
Here's a ham radio.
What's their handle?
So what? That is like a blind date.
Yeah.
And what was that call? Like, my friend told me to call you. Like, I mean, how do you?
I think it's different for women, right? You guys are like, hey, we both know that well, let's get together.
Yeah. I mean, we were, we were told to call one another. So it wasn't as if one of us had something the other wanted, or there was a mutual, we had a connection.
We're
And a mutual interest.
A mutual interest, yeah.
As well.
So music was, yes, music was the thing that brought us together, definitely. And the funny part is that she thought I was blowing her off because we had plans to get together, and I got really sick. I just had a bad cold, And so I called and canceled, and she said, and I heard vegetable chopping in the background. And I thought,
Paranoid much? Jesus.
I know we laugh about it all the time, but that vegetable chopping. And
It's good to know in the future. So
Don't
make sure
cut
there's no
vegetables when you're
chopping in the
lying to
back.
your friend
Yeah.
about not being able to meet up.
Listen, I can't make it. What's going on in the background over there?
I'm not
Nothing.
cutting cucumbers.
I think she's making a stir fry. She must be having people over.
Oh, I can hear the walk. Does anybody use a walk anymore? I don't
Yeah.
know.
So then, we got over that. We actually got together. I brought my guitar, and I heard her sing in her song, and then she heard me, and then we sang together. And I thought, this is what I'm going to be doing. This is it. And I said, how many days a week do you want to practice? Can we do 3? She said, yeah, let's do 3. And that was that. We did that for a year and a half before we met our bass player. We just played on our own. We did open mics, and I think open mics only. We wanted to be a band. Prior to meeting Nina, I'd put an ad in the Reader for. No, did I answer an ad? I may have answered. I did. I answered an ad, and I went to go meet this woman at an L7 show at this place called the Avalon, and she had invited me to. She told me to meet her at the L7 show, and so I went to the show. I saw these cool girls come out in this small club and setting up these instruments, and I thought, wow, they have really cool girl roadies, right? And then they picked up their instruments and started playing, and I'm like,
Is that when you
shit.
realize that bands have to set up their own shit?
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh,
that was the revelation.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, but L7 they rocked pretty hard.
I was
Yeah.
changed forever. And then I saw Jennifer Finch in the bathroom after, and just so geeked out I couldn't say anything. This shitty little bathroom, and I couldn't believe it. I bought the cassette, and that was also life changing. So when I got together with Nina, I had L7 in the back of my mind. So when we started veering towards Indigo Girls, we had to reel ourselves off of the ledge, reel ourselves back in. No, don't disrespect because
No. But it's a different stylistically.
Yeah.
It's a different. You're heading 2 different directions.
Yeah,
You wanted to be closer to Fine. Sorry.
Thank you.
Hey, hi-oh.
Hey.
I'll give it to him. Hi-oh. And we're back.
I had to. I don't know why.
I had fallen in love with the Pixies and My Bloody Valentine, and
Which is something you had referenced when you went to New York. So it sounds like there was obviously always something that was kind of there. Anyway.
Yeah. And Sinead O'Connor made a big influence on me, and PJ Harvey's first record, Dry. So we were not inclined to be an acoustic duo from the get-go, but we really were like honing our sound and our friendship.
Yeah, I mean, and then when you add people, you make sure that those people blend with you two as a, you know what I mean?
That's right.
Because ideally, I mean, I assume you figured, and she wrote songs too, right? I mean, you guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you were the driving force of whatever was going to be your band together, pretty much. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and we actually put an ad in the Reader Chicago Reader for a female rhythm section, and possibly because of the time there just weren't many.
When approximately?
That was 93.
93, okay.
Yeah, because our first record came. Well, it might have been it was 93 because our first record came out in 94. But our bass players, so the women we did play with weren't right. They weren't right for us. And then we played with a couple guy drummers who weren't right as well. And I had to sort out why
weren't they right?
Why weren't they right?
What would make them right?
Right. I didn't really understand what made a good drummer in my estimation, and regarding the bass player, we got a call from a dude who said, well, I'm not a girl, but
Thanks for clarifying.
You're like, and click.
I know I'm not a girl, but I really like your influences. I think we had said Game Theory, Big Star, My Bloody Valentine, and maybe the Pixies, and he came up. We're like, okay. So he came and played bass with us, and he was clearly the guy because he brought our music to the next level, enhanced it, and he made us much cooler also. There's just something about his playing. And then Nina's brother said, well, I'm not he played every instrument except drums, but he had such a good ear and was so good at knowing what he wanted to play, not necessarily as good as executing the fills, but he had such good feel, and he offered to come down and play with us. I didn't know yet what good feel he had because we hadn't yet played with him, but when he came and started playing with us, having played with, you know, I don't know, kind of jockey drummers that were just sort of Phil-licious, you know, they were just all over the place.
There's like the drummer for AC/DC who in that first record played no fills,
right?
Like a whole record with no fills, and then there's guys who are like, you're like, hey dude, are you gonna go back to the song, or are you gonna have your little fun every 5 seconds?
Listen, he didn't put on all those sweatbands, you know, to not to just take it to the next level, right?
There's a happy medium in there that can be worked on, but yeah.
Yeah, so he played it. He was Bonham-esque, and that's what we needed.
Yeah.
And so a band was born.
And this is where you and I started having brief conversations before, which is what I really like, because obviously John's going to make fun of me for 1 second, and then
way
we'll get
more
back
than
into
that.
it. Okay,
What?
fine.
Oh, because you're in radio?
When I was in radio.
Oh my God.
But this
show.
This is the conversation.
No, this makes sense. Yes.
This was the conversation that I started having with Louise that prompted me to want her to come on the show, was the fact that at that time things started changing in music. Drastically changing in music. And you and I, you may or may not remember this part of the conversation, but I was talking to you about, like, now, so removed from this, looking back on it 20 plus some years ago, that was a huge change in the music scene. The music world was going on at that time. And I was fortunate enough to be working in radio at that time, where I think we were talking about Q101 was in Chicago. I was working at LUM in Milwaukee. But seeing in that early part of the 90s, with, you know, MTV having what's the show on Sunday nights that they used to have on Sunday nights?
Headbangers Ball?
No, the alternative.
Oh yeah, Matt Pinfield, 120 minutes.
120
Thanks.
minutes.
I hosted it twice. I can't.
Yeah. Thanks for your help.
No problem.
But the change was coming, and it was a huge. Like, historically, now we can look back on it and go, "Oh my God!" Like, that was a big moment in music history. And one of the things that it was a byproduct of is, like, before that, it was AOR, basically rock radio and top 40 and country. And then all of a sudden along comes this whole new sound, this whole new generation that changed everything about music. And it's forever changed since then. And I was talking to you about how you were a part of that. And how cool that is to be a part of that whole new generation that shifted what we see as music now. It's a little bit more mainstream now, as you know. Music is definitely that part of it has evolved since the Q101 days, or the alternative radio days. Mm-hmm. But that was a huge I don't know how you look back on it, but I look back on it like that was a massive, monumental shift. South by Southwest was forever changed back then. It was just a huge deal.
And it was it scared people. Like, people didn't know how to label. If you know, they want to label everything. So
rock,
they were like,
either straight rock, or straight pop.
This is alternative to anything. So it became like, oh, I like alternative rock, and you're like, what? Like, that's still rock and roll. Like, it's all like, there's still rock and roll, you know.
But I guess I had a very unique way of looking at it from the side that I was on, the non-musician side. I'm curious as to what you saw from your side, because there were certain cities, Chicago being one of them, that was influencing what people were into, what people were listening to now. And you came from part of that. And I wonder, as you guys were building up who you became, if you were seeing that all around you as well. I mean, if you really, if you were like kind of looking around going, wow, this is crazy. Like, in the moment, did you see it? Did you not realize it? Were you just kind of rolling with whatever? What was, as you were starting to grow into this now, what were you seeing in the scene and as well as personal development?
Well, for me, things started shifting, I think, back in New York when Appetite for Destruction came out. Guns N' Roses, like, changed... they changed the layout. Like, they broke new ground, even though what they were doing was possibly throwback classic rock continuation of. They still were very, like, of the moment at that time, and doing something different. And on the heels of Guns N' Roses came, this is how I think of the order of things, and the evolution of rock at that time. Guns N' Roses was the hottest thing, you know, to ever happen. And then suddenly Jane's Addiction was there. And they came out with Nothing Shocking, which was shocking. and changed the landscape again. Just flipped it on its head. Like, cock rock was out, absolute, like, making fun of cock rock was in the smartest, coolest, most talented, artsiest way.
Yeah.
Like Dave Navarro's girlfriend. Didn't Dave Navarro wear diapers in that video, like, on stage? I mean, there was something.
Jane's Addiction was an interesting band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember going to a party in Chicago, and another now famous actors party, and we were all. I was in a room. I was in this room with a bunch of other people who loved Nothing Shocking as much as I did. We were holed off from the rest of the party, just listening to the album and freaking out, like, on every song, just freaking out.
That album is insanely good.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it is. And when you first hear it, I mean, I freaked out because I was like, what the fuck is this?
I know.
Like, you don't even, like, Appetite for Destruction, the big thing for me was that when that album came out, I was like, you know what? I remember taking all my tapes and moving my Van Halen collection back, each one, and putting Guns N' Roses first and going, you know what? GNR's my favorite band right now. And my brother going, what? What about Van Halen? And I go, no. They're still good. I still like them. But right now it's GNR. And like 3 weeks later, I was like, okay, I'm back to Van Halen, but that GNR album is forever one of the greatest things I've ever heard.
I'm so touched by that story. That is so cute.
It was a big deal to me. Music has been huge in my life from like day one. I don't know. I mean, I guess my dad was musical, but like it meant so much. And like I remember getting the 10 CDs for a penny and getting Nothing Shocking and being like, yeah, because I'd heard some of Ritual de lo Habitual first, and then was like, yeah, Jane's Addiction, and then I heard Nothing Shocking. I'm like, no, this is way better. Like, it's not. I shouldn't say way better. It's not like the other album isn't good, but it shook my brain.
I don't think any of us can deny that the discovery of new music is one of the greatest things if you're into music at all. It is the greatest emotion to have.
Yeah, you feel like
that discovery.
Yeah.
You're like
and
Lewis and Clark.
literally, like you're talking about, like you're so into it, like you're trying to get into whatever the kids listen to now. I guess it'd be MP3 players, but like back then, you're like trying to like crawl into the CD or into the album because you're like, oh my god, how much closer can I get to what I'm experiencing right now? It's a weird feeling.
And along those lines, my friends at the time were theater people. Nobody wanted to go see Jane's Addiction with me at the Aragon Ballroom. So no, it was the Aragon. Yeah. So
you saw Jane's Addiction at the Aragon.
I did. I went by myself. I scalped a ticket. I went down to the front. I just made my way down there. I did. I was all elbows, and I got in the pit, and I was lifted off of my feet, and I thought I could die tonight. And that'd be okay.
But these songs are pretty damn good.
And and Perry Farrell's up there in his sun hat with roses everywhere singing Summertime Rolls on a balcony. And I was in heaven. It was Beatlemania for me.
Yeah.
And then on the tail end of that, and the Ritual came out, I was a purist, so it never quite hit me the same way. Although Then She Did is still one of my all-time favorite songs. And then Nirvana happened. And that changed the whole face of music again. It just flipped everything on its head. So
that to me was the real death of any kind of cock rock. The Nirvana thing, like any kind of like if
You mean whatever was left over?
yeah, I mean GNR blew all that out of the water, and then like when Nirvana hit, I felt like Motley Crue went to bed like we're famous and woke up like why was everyone making fun of us? Like,
well, and yet Kurt Cobain may roll over in his grave when I say this, and anyone still living also, but there's something cock rock about Nirvana.
When you look back on all of those bands,
yep, absolutely.
The differences are so small. You're like, oh, it's just rock and roll. You made rock and roll. You made different rock and roll.
It was different rock and roll.
Yeah,
intelligent rock and roll.
Yeah.
As was Jane's Addiction.
But also there's been, that's not to take away from like the David Bowies and the guys who like I felt made intelligent rock and roll. And like
of course.
Before that.
But I guess what I'm saying is like it became a steamroll. It's just like it changed. Things changed. You could clearly see that there was a changing of a guard. There was a change in the environment. There was like everything about it. Like that's when they call that quote unquote the scene. You can feel it. You can see it around you. It wasn't status quo anymore, and it created like a feeding frenzy, for better or worse. You know, I mean, sometimes like, for every one you get right, the record labels were just grabbing anything that was out there that resembled it. But I think that kind of just goes with.
I was going to say that's what record labels do, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
they
record companies do. They're like, you sound like a band we already rep. Let's rep you too.
We were in the. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say to put a button on that.
Yeah.
The only reason why it kind of like got a little bit worse during that time, but if you stayed focused, you could still find the great stuff. Was because the new format had arrived. There was another radio station where they could flood more information. So it wasn't just a rock station, a country station, and a top 40 station anymore. There was this new format, and radio was still extremely powerful back then. It was extremely influential.
It was an exciting time for sure.
It was. You saw immediate impact, which is so bizarre. To me in the music business, I was fortunate enough to be with a band, the Guffs, that did not make it. But we were touring with Matchbox 20, and I remember seeing when they hit, it was just weird. Like when the power of radio and influence and fanaticism, which you probably saw the same growth directly, is just stunning to me. It's a unique experience that I don't know how you look back on it, but I just remember seeing it from a just being off to the side and going weird. Crazy.
Yeah, we were in the vortex of that sort of feeding frenzy, signing frenzy, the likes of which I don't know if anyone has ever seen since or before or since. But we were in the middle of it all, and we were signed after our third show to an indie label in Chicago. We were stunned.
You said after 3 shows?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, in hindsight, there's nothing wrong with that. Clearly, you guys, of course.
Well,
so in hindsight, of course.
Oh my God, we got so much shit from Chicago just as a city. They hated us.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, because we were these indie darlings that popped up overnight, and
there's guys who've been in bands 15 years, 20 years.
Part of it?
These fucking broads move in from out of state to get a record deal.
Well, we had no one. We had been behind closed doors for some time, and we felt like yelling that from the rooftops, like, we're blue collar too. No, I'm just kidding. We were just meant to
Cannonball.
say, we have a work ethic.
Watch me pound this beer.
We worked really hard to get where we are, and yet what people saw was, these upstarts that were doing well out of nowhere, and it pissed them off. Even my husband now tells me that he couldn't stand the whole Veruca Salt phenomenon.
Really?
Yeah. And he said then
this
one day...
was before or after you guys got married?
Oh, he told me this after. He told me this recently. That he was... I mean, it was...
He holds on.
Wait, but I've been with him so long that recently might have been 5 years ago.
Okay.
But he's not from Chicago. He's from Minneapolis.
Okay, but that's still.
But he was living there. He was living in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he said he was driving around one day and heard Volcano Girls on the radio, and he's like, "All right, they're good. I can't deny it anymore.
That's
I'm done."
Great, though. That's cool.
But yeah, but we were swept up in all of that craziness, and I'm absolutely guilty of that myself. Like as we were making our record, Exile in Guyville came out by Liz Phair, and she was suddenly everywhere. You couldn't look anywhere without seeing Liz Phair's face. And I was competitive with her. I felt like there wasn't enough room for all of us girls. There's always been that message, that pervasive message to women. There's not enough space for all of you. So you have to, work really hard to get noticed, and like in the theater company, you have to. There's someone who's better than you. There won't be room for you.
Well, coming from the radio side, that's not a myth. I mean, there's definitely is true. Like, when you're programming something, their attitude was like, you can't put that many women artists back to back to back. I mean, like, what are you doing here? Like, there's so all of you are dead on the fact. Like, no one ever said you can't put that many male artists back to back to back. We have that same problem in stand-up comedy. It's like, well, no, you can't. That's too many women on one show. Like, it's just like there's this weird. It's just not a fair playing field.
Right,
and everybody should always admit it. But the fact that you were aware of it and you made that, and it's obviously you must like a little bit of competition because obviously we're talking about poetry class. Somebody said you're not. Maybe you should. You're like, okay, yeah, I see where this is going.
Yeah, it's not like you shied away from it.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
But
right?
yes, but like
you're a slugger.
Well, and back to your point, like there are chick flicks, right? But are there dick flicks?
No.
No, that's not a phrase.
Well, it's not a phrase, but there are. I mean,
well, there are.
Rambo is, First Blood is a dick flick. It's
right.
Like the stuff that guys watch, like, I could be Rambo, I could be like that's
But because the women directors, women actors, predominant women in casts are still such a novelty that they're still called. There is something called a chick flick.
Right, yeah,
there is a name.
yeah.
There is a phrase that's cast about. But back to Liz Phair, I just like Tony eventually had to concede that Veruca Salt may not be all bad. I listened to Exile in Guyville, and as I listened to it, I thought, "Oh shit, this is good. This is really good." And then it made its way into my heart, and it became mine. And so that by the time I met her, I was, just a fan. I was gushing, and it changed my world. And so that, and in fact, she had made her record with Brad Wood, who was our producer for American Thighs, and he was in her band. He was the drummer in her band, and he was frankly only talking about her and her band the entire time he was making our band. So Brad, who's was a very good friend of mine, and I have laughed about this now, where he would just talk about Liz and more Liz. And there was at the time her record hit 250,000 copies. He got a call from Matador telling him so. We were in the studio with him making our album that we really only thought like our boyfriends and our families would hear, maybe
Really?
A smattering of other people.
Is that true? You were like, you knew you had the confidence to go make an album.
We thought it was great. We thought what we were doing was incredible, but we wouldn't have dared to dream.
Okay, so you weren't quote unquote feeling delusional, like
exactly.
You weren't like walking around going, "That's right, we got signed, America,
exactly.
Deal with it, Chicago." Like that was not it. You were just stoked.
We were stunned and stoked. We were like kids in a candy store. We couldn't believe we got to go to the studio every day.
Yeah. That genuineness, I also believe helps though, because if you're not believing your own hype, right, then you're not clouded.
Right.
You're just doing your thing.
We were so excited. We were so excited about our songs. I was waiting tables for a while, and Nina, we always talk about how I was logging. I logged everything we did. I had a logging notebook, all of our lyrics, all of our songs, every rehearsal we had. I would write down what songs we worked on, what songs we four-tracked, how much of it we four-tracked. And when I was waiting tables at this jazz bar downtown called Andy's Jazz Club on Hubbard, I think, or State, I think Hubbard. And I would look, between the tables and getting the food and whatnot, I would go back to my notebook and just stare and focus and think about what the next rehearsal would be. And so I was, it was my livelihood. It was my obsession, I should say. Not my livelihood quite yet. And then by the time we got in the studio, we had a number of songs we were really excited to record and make a record out of. We had done a demo with a friend who lived on the south side of Chicago. And I brought that around to all the clubs by myself. I brought them to all the club owners and gave them my cassette demo and told them about us, and then followed up on the phone with the booker. I tried to get a face-to-face meeting, and then we got offered shows at like the Elbow Room and Phyllis's Musical Inn and the Czar Bar, and we started playing everywhere around Chicago in these small places, and Lounge Acts, and then the Empty Bottle, and we very quickly got signed, as I said, and then we released 𝘓𝘓 on a 7-inch because I wanted to go to Reckless Records on Broadway and get my 7-inch. I basically just wanted to go to the V section and see my own 7-inch, and that was what was motivating us to do that. So we got it. I mean, me personally, we got it out, and someone at Hits Magazine, her name was Karen Glauber, she found it and sent it to Kevin Weatherly at K-Rock. And it became like a summer hit, and our record wasn't done yet. So we were...
Oh, that song came out before the record was done?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
well, the record wasn't released.
But it wasn't unheard of to release singles while you were still...
I suppose not, but we were actually asking people to hold off on playing it because we weren't ready.
Don't get too far ahead of right, like and unfortunately, but in hindsight, all is good. But that put a little bit of pressure on you though when that happened. Though, did you guys be like, oh my god, we're not done? Oh my god.
Oh yeah. Well, we were touring, and Idful was taken up, and it was busy. The studio where we were recording in Wicker Park, and so we had to record in little in little modules.
Okay.
We had because they had various bands booked. Oh, and Brad Wood had said when Liz's record hit that number, we said, how many records do you think will sell? And he's like, I don't know, like 10,000. And we're like, wow, that's a lot. And so when 𝘓𝘰𝘪 hit the radio, we didn't know what was happening to us at all. I remember going.
It happened quick?
It happened so fast. I walked into 7-Eleven one day and I heard it. And I was like looking around. And
were you like, does anyone know that I played this? Does anyone?
No.
Is that kind of one of those moments where you're like, I'm living in a surreal planet
Yes.
right now. Like,
Yeah,
my
definitely.
music is pumped through a 7-Eleven.
Because that song didn't just like come out gently. Like it was everywhere.
Right.
Which is what when I first heard it, I assumed there were like 2 other albums behind it. I don't know. I was like,
Oh, funny.
I'm sure this band has been around for a long time and I just never heard of them.
Oh,
I
interesting.
just assumed that. But yeah, that song hit.
Yeah, that happened. And then we caught up and released our album, which came out while we were touring with Hole.
That's what I was going to ask
Milwaukee
you.
then.
Is just touring.
Yeah.
You had, it's funny because you're like, we did a couple shows. We get signed. A couple shows in Chicago, right? You hadn't really toured.
We toured in a van in the Midwest and the East Coast.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, well, before?
Well, sort of before and during. We were during the recording
Okay.
of American Thighs
Okay.
because we would be in the studio and then leave for another band to go in, and we booked our tour around the recording schedule.
So
Nice.
when 𝘓𝘰𝘪 was out, were you on the road? And were you seeing the impact of it?
Well, that happened.
Were you a little bit ahead of that curve still on the tour part of it?
Yeah, I don't remember if we toured that summer. We toured in the fall when
you did?
it was
Okay.
good
By
and out
then
there.
it was already okay. And so you all saw the immediate impact.
We
of it.
definitely did. Yeah.
Can I ask you something? I don't talk to a lot of musicians about this, but what is it like in a packed house and hit a chord that you know that everybody in that room knows and they lose their shit? Because you obviously talked about being on the other end of that as a fan. So now flip that. What is it like standing on a stage, hitting a chord, and and like when you and
Everyone knows that's what song
they
you're
know
about to
what
go
they
into.
know what is about to happen, and they have lost their shit. Does it affect you in any way? Or did it affect you the first time something major like that happened? Do you have a moment in life where you're like, wow?
Well, it was,
Cool.
yeah. I don't know that I have a moment.
A moment,
I
okay.
think it's like a tapestry of images and memories. No, but seriously, I remember, the mosh pits were alive and well then. And I just remember thinking like, jocks love 𝘓𝘰𝘪. Like, that's so interesting. Like, we got so many girl fans, which was so cool and what we always hoped for. And then like, dudes loved us.
Couple
Maybe
dudes with backwards hats and no sleeves.
yeah, man. And they, everyone was welcome. My brother said, "No, it's good that you didn't end up with an all-girl band because there's something for everyone." And I always liked the fact that we ended up with a balanced gender band also, for many reasons. But in terms of like the impact, I remember being in France and playing the song 25 and hearing a room full of Parisians singing the words to this song 25. It kind of makes me want to cry just thinking about it because that was the song one of the songs that meant the most to us on the album. It was the last song on the album. And to hear someone, a whole room full of, a club packed full of people singing back our lyrics to us was...
You don't really speak English.
In the second language.
Yeah,
In their
yeah.
second language was mind-blowing.
It's that there's the connection, right? That's what I've always found unique is it's a connection with people you've never met, most likely you never will meet, all drawn to one place from one thing that you created, and they give it back to you in that way. It's such a unique perspective that not everybody gets to share. So I'm always just curious, like what goes through someone's mind, because sometimes people just are like, no, you're just playing your music up there. You're not seeing what's going on. You're not noticing what's going on in front of you. I'm like, no, they got to notice. The mind can do multiple things at once while they're up there. It's like, yeah, you can play your song, but there's no way you can't be feeling and seeing all these things going around in front of you.
You do see it. And I have a way of finding the one person in the back who's yawning.
Yeah, you should have been a stand-up comic.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, the guy's got his arms crossed back there. He's not having fun.
Oh, God. Musicians have that affliction as well, you guys.
Yeah.
It's really hard not to see the yawner. Or if your mom is there, that's the only person you see.
Boom, right there. Like what?
There's mom. What's she doing? Where'd mom go? Where'd she go?
She's not. Who's that guy she's talking to? What's happening over there?
So, but I will say, to take it a little deeper, that I think often about when people tell me what our music means to them, I think often about how I have felt meeting David Bowie, for example. How I felt meeting Tanya Donnelly after after the record Star, that was one of the most beautiful pieces of art that I had ever heard. Meeting the people, Liz Phair, for example, for that matter, whose music had touched me so, like, to the core. I think of that when people come up to us and say similar things that I have said, and it is so hard for me to process what they're saying as coming to me. And it is such a responsibility, not just to be gracious, but it's a responsibility to them for me to continue making art and to take them, to absorb it and process it as deeply as I possibly can, and not to be dismissive and not to be self-effacing, because that's not the point of all this. I don't need to be modest. I need to encompass what they're saying, and give it the same kind of respect that I would my own younger self or current self who is appreciating art, It's an awkward thing to hear, and we were just in Tasmania. We're touring. We just got back from Australia. We're touring on our record Ghost Notes that we put out a couple of years ago, and we had yet to tour Australia on this album. And there were these women who were, we were in Tasmania, as I said, and they came up to us. They were a group. We were doing a T-shirt signing, and they had all left their babies or their kids. Like, one of them for the first time left her baby to come see us, and had their group of friends got back together to come see Veruca Salt at this festival, and they may have had a few, but they were effusive. Well deserved. And, they were effusive and so heartfelt, and one of them possibly was in tears, telling us about how much we changed their lives when they were in high school, and how they just didn't understand that girls had that much power, and that girls could be that outspoken. And it's shocking to me that in the 90s that was still the climate, but it was, at least in Tasmania. And I think we came on the heels of so many women we respected that we felt insignificant by comparison. Like, we went to go see the Breeders' Show Pod from the Pod tour, and it definitely changed us, shaped us. We were both so incredibly touched by it. We both, prior to that, and independent of one another, were at the same Wendy and Lisa concert, and similarly moved by the whole experience and impacted by it. Found out later that we were both there, and then went to go see the Breeders' Pod. Vastly different music styles, but similar in that there was so much love on stage in both of these concerts, and so much female powerful beauty and strength that we just knew we were further emboldened to do what we did, and then and I will say this is an honor to learn that we managed to somehow pave the way for more, and so it's really profound to see people in the audience responding to our music in a way that, I may to some other music that I love, but I also feel like when we're on stage, it's not an other than, an either or. I feel like I always feel that we are all on this ship, and we're all crossing the ocean, and we're taking this ride together. And each ride is unique, and it's never going to be relived. It's never going to be recreated, no matter how many iPhones are pulled out. It's never going to translate, and you'll never get the vibe of the room. You won't smell the sweat and be there, and you won't see the bodies and be there for the sweaty, awesome rock and roll experience. And the audio will be entirely different. Yeah. And the magic will be gone. So you can't condense it down to a recording. It just will be an entirely different experience. So for me, like, the actual performance is an experience that the audience and the musicians share. And it's an organic, dynamic, moving thing that can't be captured in a bottle and just happens once.
Yeah, I agree.
John is 100% dialed in with you. You have the exact same POV on life as he does. So.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, that's the like you said, you can live stream a concert, you can watch somebody's comedy special, you can do whatever you want from the comfort of your living room, but you're never going to have the experience of a group of people kind of becoming one over whatever's happening on stage. It's like, it's pretty amazing.
You were talking about like meeting David Bowie as an example. Did you?
Can we just maybe? How was that?
We just talked about
did you
that.
appreciate?
You kind of blew by that like it was like, and then I met Cliff the mailman, and I was like, wait, what?
Well, because it's one of the nice things about having some success is you're also granted access that you may have never been granted. You know what I mean? Some of us can stay fans, and from a distance. And then sometimes we get to live a life that allows us a little bit more access, and occasionally we get to meet someone that we never thought we would get to meet. So I'm just curious if that was somebody that when you were like, I can't believe I'm getting to,
Well, right. I grew up thinking that musicians, like from the band Styx and Journey and, all the bands that I liked at certain periods, they were all from Planet Rock.
Yeah, they all had one giant house on one huge planet.
They came in. And then they left.
Right. They came to the stadium in St. Louis.
And then we're
the
spaceship.
Checker Dome, whatever they called it now. And and then they were space shipped out.
Sure.
So
it's like when you see a teacher that you had in public, you're like, what are you doing out of the school? How'd you get into the grocery store? We'll let you in here. Like, I'm just a human being. I'm buying cereal. Like, oh, well, that's weird.
Just for 1 sec, only because I will forget if I don't tell you this. So I did, a child asked me this morning at school, going back to what we were talking
equals
about.
meeting David Bowie.
It has nothing to do with meeting David Bowie. It just has to do with just how perspectives on life. I did an assembly and I had to speak at the assembly this morning. A child, kindergarten, walks past and goes, hey. I go, yeah. Do you have a child that goes to school here? And in my mind, I'm like, if I didn't.
This would be the weirdest day of everyone's life.
Because in her mind, it's like, I don't know why that guy
is
always around here.
What's his
I've never
deal?
seen him with other children.
Oh my
he comes in, does weird stuff.
Mr. Rando.
Doesn't teach any classes.
Meanwhile, her parents are calling the school. Who's this strange man giving speeches?
Anyway, point being, access being around. So anyway, back to David Bowie.
Well, but no, that's such a that's that is
Why are you
definitely
here?
so. Well, right. So I was invited to his 50th birthday party, and
Do you still have the invite?
no, I think it was more of a verbal invite.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I was after the show at Madison Square Garden. We were, meant to meet at an after party, which was in some kind of loft that had no sign.
After his show or your show?
After David Bowie's
Okay,
show. It was
okay.
his big birthday, 50th
Gotcha,
birthday at Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
And we went to, much of which I didn't see, was sadly, I just saw the other day I was watching a performance of David Bowie and Lou Reed and doing Queen Bitch. And it was at his 50th birthday party at Madison Square Garden. I'm like, Lou Reed was there performing?
Jesus.
Was I backstage? Like, how did I miss this? It's shocking to me.
Yeah.
And God, was he beautiful. Both of them. But I'm talking about Bowie. He was radiant. He was so happy. Watching that performance, I was so touched by it. He was so happy and in his element, in his zone, like surrounded by friends, like really lapping it up, like really present for it,
Yeah.
And I thought that is a lesson for life right there. Just watching him be present for all of this glory, and who knows how he felt inside, but his outsides were beaming. And so, but that was my experience in meeting him at this party. He was radiant and gracious and glowing. And I was sitting at a table. I was seated at a table with some other musicians, noteworthy musicians, successful, noteworthy musicians from the 90s, as we were in the 90s. And and that was sort of, I was in my element, right? And then I was asked if I wanted to meet David Bowie and sort of like, as we crossed the room, it's like we crossed dimensions, like we're in A Wrinkle in Time, when you're crossing dimensions. And of course he was just a person, but just one of the loveliest people I've ever met. And we had just gotten an advanced cassette of our album 8 Arms to Hold You, which had a song on it called With David Bowie that Nina had penned about discovering David Bowie in her 20s and loving it, just discovering David Bowie and what that meant to her and falling in love with him, his music. And so I offered him this cassette. I said, I just got this today and it has a song about you and I'd love for you to hear it if you'd care to. And he took it so graciously and tucked it into his blazer pocket, inside his pocket, and said, thank you so much. I'll look forward to it. He was just so kind. And and then, Iman was like, David, we must go. And whisked him off. And they were just so fabulous.
Yeah,
the party was so fabulous. And
what I love about this, just for one sec, is just that you stayed a fan and you did a fan thing, which is totally awesome. It was such a genuine moment. And it's like, it's not always like, oh, David, yes, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like, oh, and we talk, it's like, instead of having this very like separating yourself from the general public, right? Of like, well, of course, I met David and we're all musicians. Like the story was so genuine. Like you stayed.
I still think he is from another dimension and he's one of the greatest artists of our time. And yeah, I couldn't believe I was getting to meet this man,
Eye contact, right?
I think whatever you say about him is that what I guess I understood this before, but what I really understood after his passing was the effect he had on so many people who didn't fit in. They felt like they were weird. Like, and I know people say that a lot about a lot of artists where it's like, oh, I didn't fit in, and then I listened to Van Halen, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is what I like. And you're like, yeah, okay. But, like, I feel like David Bowie, so many people were like, they didn't like sports, so they were weird. Like, things that went on in their life that made them, like, I liked art as a kid, and nobody else did. Like, that shit, like, they could see David Bowie and be like, oh, yeah, dude, no, we can do whatever we want. Everything's cool. Like, there's guys like him out there. It's fine. I just feel like he gave a lot of people...
permission?
Yeah, just like be who you are. Like the go ahead to do that. Yeah, I guess permission.
Well, yeah, and a license to do that, like, or motivation to do that, incentive, like.
Or just there's no need to hide it. Like, don't try to live some kind of weird exterior that's not you, because in the end you're gonna be miserable as fuck.
Right. Even with all of his costumes and stuff, he was saying that. Like, he was saying exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he changed the landscape. He was in every way a game changer.
Yes, I agree.
And I always think the mark for me of a good artist is when they make me want to go make art. Like right now, like I'll hear a song by Lou Reed and I want to go write a song. I hear a song by David Bowie, I want to go write a song. I want to hear a Beatles song, I want to go write a song. Same goes for the Pixies. I want to go write.
Yeah,
I always do.
Because good art inspires more art. I hope.
I
or at least inspires.
Like,
so it doesn't need to be art, but it can inspire you to do other things.
I just went to a reading the other night at Skylight Books here in LA for a book by a woman named Beth Pickens. The book is called Your Art Will Save Your Life. My husband, who's also a musician, saw this listed and said, we have to go to this. And we just did. We had to go because he and I will tend to at his insistence, we hung our guitars on our wall. We have a music room and he hung the guitars on the wall. I think it looks a little too like Guitar Center, but he likes it, so I'm like giving him that. But the good news is that we see our guitars and remember that we are guitar players when we're deep in parenthood and everything else that makes our lives go around. And yet we can forget for long periods of time, like the aforementioned time when I had a baby and we put our guitars in the closet. And we kind of forgot. And he said, they got to come out. We're going to forget. 10 years are going to pass and we will not have played guitar. That's not okay.
No.
And this woman, Beth Pickens, says, it's really not okay. If you're an artist, you have to create or you will be unwell. So, and your future fans are waiting. So I have to take heed. I have to respect not only my own instinct to write and create, no matter what, like no matter whether like the industry has changed and records don't sell the way they used to. And in our case, we can't really tour because we have small children. That's the way it is right now. So whatever it means to be a musician, whether it means I'm a constantly working musician, writing, albums and letting them songs and putting them on the internet, or whether I'm really focusing on it being my career, I just have to keep doing it. And so does every single artist who is listening right now. We all have to do it, and not listening, because we have a responsibility to respond to the world that we live in and to offer our unique perspective. Every single one of us has a unique perspective and a unique offering, and no song is going to be just like the next, no painting just like the next. And even if we don't feel like we have enough fans or we don't sell enough, what this woman says is your art has no correlation to its value, to its monetary value. There's no correlation between the two. So get out of that thinking, right? And just make it, because your future fans, readers, viewers are waiting for you to do so. And not everyone is inclined to do it. So you have this this gift, responsibility, drive. Listen to it. Listen to your instinct and create.
Well, and another thing that you and I have talked about in respects to that is it comes in unique ways too. I mean, if you look at what you and I do, we also communicate in the ways that we know best with children. Something we probably never thought we were going to do.
Oh, I thought you were
Definitely.
talking about the band you started.
Yeah, we've got a band together. It's called Never Gonna Happen.
Not together, just
So,
like you're like not together, just like trying to compare yourself.
The band is called Brian's Not Here, and that's the best thing that happened today in the band. But I learned very quickly. I was initially resistant to do anything on campus, but then I realized I had an ability. First off, I have no fear of talking in public, whether it's you're 90 or 2. It doesn't matter. I will find a way to communicate with you. It's a skill that I have, right? And then building on that, whether it's pies in the face, which I only did that because I knew what would connect. I knew things, simple things that connected with the kids. And there was messages behind the pies. It wasn't just the pies. It was the messages, and the kids liked it or whatever. But it was when I saw that you just went out of your way to teach kids music in a different way. And you and I talked about this too. It wasn't anything against what they were already learning.
Right.
It was added on top
in addition to.
It was a different perspective. It was you saying, I have something inside of me. I would like to share it this way. And I always remember, I think it was last year, watching it come to fruition, sitting in the back and watching, I can't remember, it was a big assembly that you had, and all the kids were on the stage, and they were singing, and music was playing, and they were marching around, and everything was in sync, and it all made sense. And it's like, if you were to take everything that's cool about it, rock and roll is the body surfing, the mosh pits, the being in playing at the Metro or the Avalon or whatever, or just what type of audience we assume it needs to be, right? And in that moment, I'm like, the audience is whoever the audience is, and the participants are whoever they are in the moment. And I was so blown away by, like, if all of a sudden I was like, for everybody that makes fun of me for talking about being married and having kids and talking about kids, and I'm like, you don't get it, man. I've crossed over.
Yeah.
I see something now that I'm so glad I'm a part of. I was very resistant to it for a long time because I wanted to be in the adult world for as long as possible. I didn't want to dip my toe. I didn't want to hang. I don't know what I would hang. I don't play guitar, but I didn't want to hang my thing on the wall and just have it become, a dust collector or whatever, or my version of Guitar Center, right? You and my husband are the same in that way. Yeah. I love the fact that you're just saying, it's like, whatever it is, just go create. And I saw it. It didn't fall on deaf ears. I guess what I'm saying. It's like the kids became something I never thought I would see the kids become. Because I think we don't give them enough credit. We think that they just give them a recorder and play that same song again, like they've been playing for 35 years in class. Yeah. I have so many recorders in my house right now.
Ugh.
Yeah. Nothing against the recorder. You recorded. That's what they're called, right? They're called recorders.
Yeah. Boring old recorders.
Boring old recorders. Yeah. I mean, listen, we got a little bit of everything. We've talked about tapes, kids' tapes, or something that would melt in your car. Your favorite.
That's what
would melt in your car if you didn't take it out.
I did want to say. I think that's great that you had a tape of a tape you made and you gave it to Bowie, and at the time he was like, I got to put this in a tape player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even David Bowie had to find a tape player to be like,
right.
Oh, that's a good
Had to find a tape player.
So funny to me.
Off of her Tascam 4-channel recorder.
Unless he's like, no, I put it on my space thing and it plays. Like he could have had something going on. Like he could have been flown to Earth in a chamber. Like I wouldn't be surprised to find out David Bowie might not have been 100% human.
It would have been fun if she said I gave him the tape and then he just floated away.
And then he just disappeared. It was insane.
Well, he sort of did. He drifted off in a like a bubble with Iman, you know, like a beautiful bubble.
But those two together too. Like I think that's like that. That's just you. You can look at that relationship and go, God damn, you guys were married for a long time. They were together for a long time, and they were like. Every picture of them is like them having the best fucking time.
Yeah, I think that
There's never a picture of like him walking ahead of her out of a restaurant and her like, what? Like, it's always like they're laughing and they're telling each other something like, hey, look at this guy. Like, there's always, every photo I've ever seen of them has been like some sort of inside hilarious joke that they're having with each other. And it's like, you can't really ask for anything more than that.
Well, and that's also the fear is, you know, sometimes when you want to meet, you know, they always joke about like
don't meet your heroes.
Yeah, don't meet your heroes. They might let you down. Like it's always a scary thing, right? There's that scary chance to be like, "Here's my tape, and just throw it." And be like, anyway, somebody gave me a shot of tequila. You're like, "That's not the guy I thought you were. You are not behaving as the person I thought I was going to be right now. Please go pick up my tape. Please go pick my tape off the ground."
Because you said that, I will have to tell you how the story ends, which is, no, it's good.
Okay, all right. Okay.
That the next day, David was on a radio show in Boston and brought up this tape and brought up the fact that he had listened to it and loved it and said that I was lovely. And so that was something that happened.
I honestly thought that you just never heard from about
knew.
it again.
No.
That's why you didn't follow.
No, in fact, the DJ knew how incredibly important this moment would be to me. So she put it on a cassette tape and she gave it to me when we were next at the radio station.
Oh my God! So you have David Bowie on tape.
I have it somewhere.
Interview saying, "Yeah, no, I listened to it. And
yes,
it was good."
I somewhere have that.
Better dub that tape before that.
Oh,
It's
you
tape.
gotta find
Remember
that.
that. Never forget. You should know. You're from the tape generation.
I'm glad
the
that you
warped tape generation.
I am, and I have currently boxes of like bins of warped tapes in my garage that my husband is begging me to throw out. So thank you for jogging my memory. I can't bear to throw them out because they're all like, each one is so special to me. And I know that somewhere in that morass of tapes, melting tapes, is that one from FNX in Boston.
Well, and awesome. I will also tell you, and this you can use this in your arguments, as long as you're not a hoarder.
No.
Okay, God, I just want to be clear. I cannot support hoarding. Cannot. It's my one thing. Your tapes are artwork now. You put them in the old tape. Remember the tape? You know the square tape cassette holders.
Yes.
They make them into art now. So they take all the tapes, put them in there, and then they put a piece of plexi over them, and people hang them on walls. It's now look is now the coolest art around.
Beautiful.
So you're just basically building up an art arsenal.
It sounds like I am.
Yeah.
That, in theory, you could unscrew the plexi at any moment, and it becomes another layer of art because you can still play it. You can play this art.
I
just gave you probably one of the greatest. It's either that, he'd be like, "Hey, thanks for that. So we're getting divorced now." Because I'm a hoarder. I was lying that day. No.
If he'll get rid of his comic books, I'll consider the cassettes.
Now
He'll never do that. That's
outrageous.
What's that crazy talk? I don't understand.
Come on now.
I have to get a massage, you guys.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did talk about that.
I do. I think she might be waiting for me.
Oh, no, yeah, great. Oh, I was just going to say that what you just said about creating art was like a perfect place to end it. That was beautiful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wrecked it by
being Brian.
tagging
but
on.
that's okay.
Like I always do. I'm so glad that you came.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I came
and
too.
did this whole
Thank
thing.
you so much, dude. You guys, are you still touring? You still playing shows?
Just
yeah,
got
we
back from one, right?
we just
Well,
got,
no, but right. I mean, in continuation with that, I meant.
in continuation with that, we are working we're working towards the next album.
Okay.
And I'm writing. I'm
Awesome.
writing whether I mean to or not. I'm writing. I'm just singing songs into my iPhone constantly. I don't know where they're coming from.
So
they're just showing up.
Can I assume that eventually I'll be somewhere and you'll walk up to me and go, here's a tape of the new Veruca Salt album. We put a song on there about your podcast. And I'll tuck it into my blazer.
Already in the works,
I'll tuck it into my
John.
blazer, and me and my wife will laugh out the door.
And someday your podcast.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned that at the very beginning. You have a podcast?
We do. Yeah, we are working on a podcast right now called...
Sorry about the hair. I have a farm.
You have
hide
cats?
I have cats and dogs. Is that okay? You're not allergic, please?
I'm not
Oh my God,
allergic.
you're not gonna all of a
No,
sudden
I'd be
just collapse.
Glad
No.
you've been here 2 hours, and now
Yeah.
we're just
No.
asking you.
We do, but it's not launched yet, and we are currently looking at some edits. Ours is actually visual as well as audio. Nina and I are doing.
I was going to say, it's you and Nina? Or
yeah,
it's,
me and
okay.
Nina. Mm-hmm.
What's it called? What are you going to
It's
call
called
it?
Hero Worship.
Okay.
And we're our current job is to go through some recent edits and okay them, and then we'll move forward. But the problem is the visual creates a whole new dimension, which is cool to have, but there are there are angles one doesn't like, and there are lighting that one doesn't like, and then it also may change the dynamic. Like you're not just as relaxed as you might be
Right.
if there weren't cameras pointing at
on
you.
Yeah.
It may do something good. It may bring something different, but it is a different animal because there are cameras on, cameras rolling. So we've done like I think 8 or 10, and it's taken us a long time to get these done. But we will hopefully be launching them soon. I mean, so long that in one point in one of the podcasts, we have Fred Armisen on, who's a friend from Chicago who also was in a
Awesome.
band and hated us because he thought we were doing it the wrong way.
That's
And
funny.
he was in this really cool band named Trenchmouth. He's one of the people, actually, and we talked about this on the podcast, so spoiler alert, who was like, we were friendly and we'd see each other places. And I actually thought at the time that he was the funniest person I'd ever met. And it was such a tragedy that the world didn't know about him.
Right.
Because he was too funny to be kept secret. And he was in a drummer in a band in Chicago. Like, why?
Drummers are always hilarious.
Well, it's true. It's true. But anyway, he was in this band and he thought we were super uncool for doing it the way we did it. He would hate it that I say that because he doesn't like to say anything negative about anybody ever. But he did. And so it wasn't until later when he thought, oh, okay. Like they were savvy. They knew what they were doing. Self-promotion's not a bad thing. He saw us doing flyers. He was working at a cafe called 𝘓𝘰𝘪𝘴, and we used to go in there and label our flyers. And then we would do the whole glue thing. We'd put our flyers up everywhere and also send them to everyone. We'd do mailers. And it was super old school, but we meant business. I was logging and sending
that's
flyers.
what I'm saying. You going to the record companies and going to the places and giving them tapes of your tape and saying,
Manual
this is
labor.
us. And like, it's not, I sent you a link, man. I did my job. Now listen to the link. It's like there was actual labor involved in being in a band back then. This is like, you just had to.
Yep. Yeah, you had to.
Or at least every successful band I've ever heard of did that.
Yeah, totally. But in that podcast, we talk about David Bowie and we talk about Prince. And at the time, Prince was still with us. And Nina said, "You guys are so lucky for having met David Bowie. I'm so jealous." And I said to them, "Well, you guys, I'm so jealous of both of you for having met Prince." Speaking of meeting people,
Yeah.
And Fred said, "Well, there's still time. He's across town." And a couple of weeks later, he passed away, and here we are, still not having released the podcast. So the timing is a little awkward at this point. So we'll have to do some sort of disclaimers. But the podcasts were really fun, and it's a great excuse to put your phones down, your fucking phones, and just talk to human beings and
Bringing
look them
it
in the
all back
eye.
around.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Right.
Bringing it all back around. I will say that our show, we do video our show. It's on a Nest camera.
Oh, that's
Actually, it's a
great.
Ring camera, and we are only broadcast on the Ring neighborhood.
Oh my God.
It's all live, right?
Yeah,
Like
Guy
right now.
Steele's Package and Hollywood Anonymous
Dude,
is on the Ring
Again,
neighborhood.
very
cam.
sexy.
Yeah, that's how we roll. I am so glad that I met you and you were in my life, and I'm glad that I was able to have you on this show. And I know this dude was stoked. To
I
have
am
you as well,
super
so.
stoked. I'm very glad you came on the show. I really appreciate it. And also, guys, if you take one thing away from this episode, I think it's everything you said about coming out of that book, about whatever you do, keep creating. And it's not about financial gain or social status or whatever. It's about being a healthy human being, and other people might benefit from what you do. You have no idea.
Yeah.
And I'm smiling very big right now, just so everybody can imagine or try to picture, because I can't express it.
Ah, that's nice.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Enjoy your massage. Thank you for listening to Hollywood Anonymous. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Hollywood Anony. That is short for Hollywood Anonymous. You can also follow John individually at John Huck and myself, Brian Irwin, at Brian Irwin on Twitter as well. Both of us can be found on Facebook. You can also Google us and contact us directly, HollywoodAnonymousGuys@gmail.com. Thank you again so much for listening, and please don't forget to subscribe